Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Knott.
I was going to Mr. Knott from North Carolina. Excuse me.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Raskin, I always appreciate inquiry, love the discussion.
Wait. The good gentleman from North Carolina was right. Was that?
I'm sorry.
I want to make
Yield
sure.
back.
I'll come to you next. Without objection, all of the opening statements will be included in the record. Chair now recognizes the gentleman, Mr. Harris from North Carolina, to offer an amendment in the nature of a substitute.
Mr. Chairman, I have an amendment at the desk.
Clerk will report.
Amendment in the nature.
Without objection, the amendment in the nature of substitute will be considered as read and shall be considered base text for the purposes of amendment. Gentleman from North Carolina is recognized, Mr. Harris, to explain the amendment.
This amendment makes changes to the base text. The amendment narrows the focus to jurisdictions that have cashless bail policies related to serious violent crime offenses and other crimes that promote public disorder. The changes are not intended in any way to alter the important purpose of this bill, and I urge support for my amendment, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Now I'm going to recognize the other gentleman from the great state of North Carolina, Mr. Knott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to briefly respond, I largely echo many of what Mr. Raskin just mentioned about the Federal Bail Reform Act. And as you well know, or probably know, whenever someone was arrested in the federal system, you have a detention hearing where the state can argue that you are a flight risk or you are a danger. And I think what this particular bill represents is trying to at least bring some consideration back to the criminal history of the individualized cases, of the individualized people. And my analysis when I was a prosecutor was what was the crime committed and what was the criminal history. And that was largely the two considerations for whether or not they were likely going to inflict more harm. And obviously you can get into how strong the case was. But if you arrested somebody with a low-level drug amount or they zero criminal history, there's a case to be made. They should be released pending trial. But if you arrested somebody that had 15 different felonies, $1 million cash, 3 different passports, high weaponry, and so forth, you could make the case that person is a guaranteed risk to the community. And I don't want to speak for my good friend, Mr. Harris, but what we've seen in some parts of North Carolina, and certainly around the country, is sort of a rote rubber stamping of cashless bail releases, regardless of criminal history. And obviously, it's difficult to speak in broad terms when you deal with individual cases. But in North Carolina especially, there's some pretty glaring examples of recidivist violent felons who have been released even after they have been repeatedly arrested pending trial. And again, I yield to Mr. Harris if there's any point of clarity here, but I believe that's sort of the motivation of the bill that we're discussing today.
Indeed. Thank you, sir.
Back.
Gentleman yields back.
I yield back.
Does the ranking member seek recognition? Gentlelady from I'll go whichever one. Gentlelady from California.
Yes, thank you for recognizing me. I'd like to yield my time to my ranking member.
Thank you kindly, and I appreciate that, Ms. Kamala Duff.
I actually think you have time.
Oh, okay. But in any event, but I agree completely with what I understand Mr. Knott's explanation to be, and I think we can kind of converge around the hypothesis that money's kind of irrelevant to it. You could have an extremely rich person, you could have a billionaire who could easily pay cash bail, who might be a flight risk or who might be a danger, and you might have a very poor person who would qualify according to those two criteria but wouldn't be able to pay the money. So that money just seems to introduce an extraneous factor, which is why some jurisdictions have chosen to follow the federal courts. In any event, the bill's fine with me because it will get us some basic information, but it would be interesting to do a real study of how it works in different places and what the effect is on public safety. And I thank the gentlelady for yielding. Yield back to you.
Thank you. And I would just like to add that I agree with a lot of what my colleague on the other side just said, but I would like to respectfully disagree with one portion, which is that we're seeing rampant rubber stamping on these cashless bail cases, because oftentimes those determinations are really dependent on the office of the DA and the politics coming out of that office. And if you have a, amped up office that is not interested in, well, I'm trying to be as nice as I can because this is our last day, but I will just say that it is oftentimes dependent on the politics and the vision of the DA. So with that, I'll yield back.
Gentlelady yields. I'm sorry. I was being distracted by the ranking. No. We're I'm kidding. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized.
So this really isn't a problem in Kentucky, and I have a few questions. Number one, isn't this a state issue? Number two, what are you going to do with the list? And number three, can't Chat GPT or Grok do what this bill does in like 5 seconds? Like, why are we wasting time on this? And does anybody want to answer those questions? Isn't this a state issue? Because we solved it in Kentucky. Number two, what are you going to do with this list when you get it? Because it is a state issue. And number three, in less than the 5 minutes you've yielded to me, Chat GPT or Grok can do what this bill asks the DOJ to do. Anybody want to address that?
Well, I'll address it.
Please.
You yield to me?
I yield to.
I would just say that the fact that what we're doing with this bill is acting on codifying, if you will, an executive order that instructed the Department of Justice to develop this, maintain a list that would be available so that folks in their own community would know if indeed cashless bail policies were there, and also for those that would be traveling to a particular area. Certainly you make the point of Chat GPT, and a person could search in that, but again, this would be maintained so that folks from across the country would have access to that and would be able to see that.
Well, I appreciate that, but now I've got another question. If it's already done by executive order, why are we wasting time on it here again?
Well, again, it's just codifying it. I yield back.
All right, I appreciate the gentleman, and those are my questions, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Who seeks recognition? Oh, gentlelady from Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd move to strike the last question. I do have several concerns, and I share the gentleman from Kentucky's concern that this is a state issue. The Constitution reserves to the states in the 10th Amendment general criminal justice powers, police powers for public health and safety. And it is a very valuable part of our federal system that we have this great laboratory of ideas across the country, where we have seen state and local governments making reforms to their bail systems in response to the growing body of research which has highlighted the inequities in bail systems, which disproportionately burden racial minorities, women, and overwhelmingly the poor. So I do have concerns about some of these bills which are expressing a preference for a return to sort of the Dickensian debtor prison model, when none of these bail reform statutes or ordinances or whatever disregard public safety or disregard flight risk. I mean, that's always part of the equation here. So given the level of interest by the committee and given the questions that are being raised, it seems like it would be more productive for this committee to hold hearings on bail reform and allow a full exploration of the ideas and the actual evidence as opposed to the rhetorical pugilistics that we are hearing just by marking up these bills. So I remain concerned, as I always have been, by the fact that we do have a two-tier system of justice in this country where access to lawyers or access to bail very often determines the outcome of your case. You know, we shouldn't have a criminal justice system that just caters to the wealthy and the well-connected and those who can afford bail or pardons or anything else. So with that, I would yield back.
Gentlelady yields back.
Mr. Chairman,
Gentleman from New York.
move to strike the last word.
Gentleman's recognized.
I think my colleague from Kentucky brings up some good points, and the one thing I would say is that this should not be an onerous task for the Department of Justice to use ChatGPT to conduct this study. But I think generally, the more data we have, the better. And I think it could be helpful if it's done in an objective manner, which I highly question this Department of Justice to do, to generate some more data on bail and the success of bail, because I think the data to date shows that cash bail is really ineffective at achieving the objectives of bail. That, as my colleague from North Carolina, Mr. Knott, said, you have, if you want to make a determination about dangerousness, and I think that is a very worthwhile hearing for us to have, whether someone is dangerous or not, there's no degrees of dangerousness to say, oh, if you can make $10,000 of bail, then all of a sudden you're no longer dangerous. And so the idea here is, if you are found to be dangerous in jurisdictions that have dangerousness as a consideration, then it's binary. And you should either be released or you should be remanded. And the idea of cash bail is simply, the result of cash bail is simply to discriminate based on poverty levels, which is not what the intention of our bail laws should be. You also have to add, of course, risk of flight, which provides a different element. And I think in that way, the federal system makes a lot more sense, where you often will have bonds that have to be guaranteed by others, family members, friends, close associates, close colleagues, or whomever it may be, that show that they have enough money to pay them. So if that defendant decides to flee, he is creating a tremendous financial burden for those people who vouched on his behalf. But the idea that you say $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 based on either the risk of flight or the severity of the risk of inflicting harm again makes no sense. And that is ultimately the problem with cash bail. Now, it may result in some cases that the more people are remanded initially, but the net effect, because so many people cannot pay their cash bail, is that there will be fewer people remanded and much more narrowly targeted to people who are either serious risks of flight or potentially dangerous. So I think that we ought to add to this bill a further study of the different bail systems around the country, more than just a list. And the list is a good start. Obviously, the department can do this on its own. We can also require this, but this should be a first step, not a last step. And I'll yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Chair recognizes the gentlelady from, or I think it was Mr. Johnson, then I'll come to you. I think that was the order I was given. Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I rise in strong opposition to this bill that requires the Attorney General to compile a list of each state, we have 50 states, and each unit of local government that permits the release pending trial of a person charged with a covered offense on personal recognizance or upon execution of an unsecured appearance bond. And so do you guys realize we have 18,000 local and state jurisdictions that would have to provide this data to the Attorney General? And then as far as covered offenses, I mean, you want to know whether or not a local government allows cash bond for an offense that promotes public disorder, such as looting, vandalism, rioting, inciting to riot, or fleeing from a law enforcement officer. So these are misdemeanor offenses, but you want to know which states allow and which counties and cities and their courts allow cashless bond for individuals accused of those relatively minor offenses. It sounds like you're trying to, this is Antifa related. It sounds there's something nefarious about this legislation and what it is seeking. It's like a Trojan horse, and it's busy work also. Doesn't the Attorney General have better things to do than to be compiling lists so that this committee can target and get back at folks that are from so-called democratic cities? The public is not concerned about that. They're concerned about affordability. They're concerned about what is government doing to make life better for them, not, insisting that government undertake a chase running behind its own tail, trying to capture it, just running in circles. This legislation, I just don't understand it other than the fact that it's trying to put together a hit list so that this committee can spend its time going after those jurisdictions. I think that we have better things to do on this committee, and I would ask that we start looking at some of the things, like why would we not speak up when a guy who is responsible for importing 400 tons of cocaine into this country, and this committee doesn't have a question, no oversight, it's okay. The abuse of the pardon, that's not the first major drug dealer to be freed by a pardon. Yeah, this president has pardoned more criminals, Bitcoin billionaires, and these are people that are doing business, because of course this is a pay-to-play environment that this president has created. You don't get anything unless you pay. And this committee has so much work to do, so many things to look at in its oversight capacity, but instead it's trying to compile a list of jurisdictions that allow judges in their discretion to release people on cashless bail. This is, the American people are watching this and wondering, what did we vote for? Who did we vote for? And why did I make the mistake of voting in these folks? Well, you're getting what you paid for. You're getting what you voted for. But there's time. We have 2026 coming up. And I'm glad that the citizens, I hope that we'll have an opportunity to vote, because this president might even try to take that away. He's talking about running for a third term. He's got Alan Dershowitz coming to the office and laying out strategies to be able to get a third term in office. Just ridiculous. And this committee could be looking at that. I'd prefer that we look at that as opposed to this kind of nonsense that is the Cashless Bail Reporting Act. I rise in opposition to it, and with that, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from North Carolina, and then the gentlelady from North Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield to my colleague from North Carolina, Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Knott. I just want to point out that, again, many of us that participated, or a number of us that participated in the field hearing in Charlotte, understood not only Irina Zarutska's situation that took us there, but we also heard a very impassioned father that was there named Stephen Federuca, who talked about his daughter Logan, who, again, we were there just astounded by the fact that a man that had committed 14 crimes was still out on the street and led to the senseless murder of Irina Zarutska. But there we learned from a father whose daughter Logan was killed by a man that, if I recall, it was 54 times he had been arrested, and was still in the streets of Columbia, South Carolina. She lived in North Carolina, lived in my district, but actually was visiting friends in Columbia when she was murdered by someone that, again, was out on the streets. I appreciate those on the other side that have spoken to the fact that this would give us the opportunity to look as a first step, and I agree that we can go deeper in studies that we could do at some point, but this is a way of making the general public and having available to them the jurisdictions across our country that are utilizing this type of cashless bail and these kind of more liberal approaches in our justice. And with that, I yield back.
I yield.
Gentleman from Carolina yields back. Gentlelady from Washington, then.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, I've been convinced after listening to this conversation that I agree with Mr. Massey. I mean, I agreed with Mr. Massey before. I wondered why this was on our docket. And I guess I was thinking, oh, you know, we'll just fight the fire where it really is. But I really don't understand why we're doing this, because when you look at this whole system, we're getting involved in something that is it is a state issue. There are 41 state constitutions that have affirmative right to bail provisions, and 9 states that don't have an affirmative constitutional right to bail, but do mirror the federal language. And I guess I just think that this is sort of the precursor to the other bills that were on the docket for today, creating the hit list so we can make this a partisan thing and call out certain states that we don't like. Presumably, they're going to be all Democratic states. I mean, I heard the reference just now to, quote, liberal bail policies. So the bias is showing through, and I do think that listening to this whole conversation, I agree with Mr. Massey that this is not something we should be spending our time on. If we wanted to have a real honest conversation about bail reform, have some hearings, listen to testimony, make sure we're addressing state, federal issues, I think that would be one thing, but I don't think we should be wasting our time on this. And I think I'm inclined to vote no. Yield back.
Okay, who seeks recognition? Question then is,
Mr. Chairman.
the ranking member is recognized.
Yeah, I mean, the gentlelady from Washington, the gentleman from Kentucky, both raise, you know, serious questions about how necessary this legislation is, given that it's information that's already available. You know, I don't want to oppose it simply because I'm always for more information, and I support legislation that advances information. I do think that the good sponsor presented his bill in such a way as to alienate some people who are otherwise ready to vote for it. But you know, be that as it may, you know, I still want to vote for a bill that's going to get us more information. I hope it would begin to open everybody's mind about getting more information, because there are powerful arguments to be made that systems that get rid of cash bail, like the federal system, work just as well or better in terms of promoting justice than those that include that financial motive component. But I've got nothing to be afraid of in terms of more information. So I will resist every effort to make this an ideological partisan issue. And I yield back to you, Mr. Chairman.
The gentleman yields back. The question occurs on the adoption of the amendment